Good evening and a very warm welcome to Depot. The event today will be live streamed, but you won't be in the picture. Your voice will be recorded if you speak into a microphone though, so if you don't want that, just don't use the microphones. Now I'm very happy to welcome the founders of ETC here with us today, and I wish you a very nice evening with this edition of Crit Cross.
Thank you so much. Thank you all for being here. Also thanks to Depot for hosting us again and also organizing the live stream. Hello also to the people who are watching. My name is Klaus Speidel. I'm one of the co-founders of Verein K with Dejan Kalujerovic, who is here, and also with Jelena Kalujerovic. This program, Crit Cross, is now at the number 24. Who would have known that we would go for so long? We're supported by the city of Vienna and the 7th district of Vienna for doing Crit Cross. It's really a reading and discussion group for art criticism because we felt there was very little places to discuss criticism in the public space. There's a lot of discussions of curating at art fairs, and sometimes they do a bit of criticism, but there's no kind of ongoing format. And pretty soon we also started to invite people for this format and try to feature very different kinds of publications. So we looked at criticism from the American South during Corona, where we organized a lot of things on Zoom. We did something on criticism in the media, in the news media, so with someone from Kurier and Die Presse. All of these things, or most of them, are also available online, so if you want to view them after. And we had Texte zur Kunst last time with Christian Leclerc, who was the editor-in-chief of Texte zur Kunst, and we thought this time it would be interesting to again feature a kind of very young and very engaged publication. So I'm extremely happy to welcome Hana Čeferin and Lara Mejač. Mejač. Sorry for that. Lara Mejač. Hana Čeferin is an art historian and curator. She has been the head of the design biennial that just opened since 2023, architecture and design, and the head of the program of Mala Galleria in Ljubljana since 2024. Since 2021, you co-founded Etc. magazine. I always call it Etc. Some people call it ETC.
That's totally fine.
Yeah.
Okay.
But some people
How do you call it?
ETC.
We call it ETC.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, ATC. I'll try to absorb that. And Lara works as an independent curator and producer in the field of contemporary, visual, and intermedia art. And between 2016 and 2023, she was curator, producer, and program coordinator of Dobra Vaga Gallery. In addition, she has curated and produced exhibitions in various galleries in Slovenia and abroad. And you're both born in the 90s, and you're bringing a kind of emerging art from the Balkans to the Baltics. I always get the order wrong, but it is the Baltics first, and then the Balkans.
The catchphrase is Baltics to the Balkans, but it's...
I think both works.
Yeah.
Yeah, amazing. Yeah, I actually have been lucky enough to see early on the first edition. That's not the first edition, but this one, the first edition of Etc. magazine, and having met Hana earlier on, I was very happy to see the birth of this magazine. And then when I was curating an exhibition in the Curated By Festival, I looked at different places to discover artists on the topic of traces, stories, and ghosts, so art that interferes with reality. And I discovered one very beautiful position in the magazine, so it does its job. It showcases the emerging art, in this case from Ljubljana, and invited Lene Lekše, the artist, to showcase her project on a non-existing mountain, Ginberg, which was then visible during Curated By at Crobat Gallery, and then was also happy, full disclosure, but when you're an art critic, you nearly wrote for all the publications that you feature, and was lucky to write an essay for Fever Dreams, so the next edition. And it was actually the first essay that was illustrated. So that was actually great. Normally you never illustrate it when you're an essay writer, but it's very rare, and I was very happy when I discovered that there would be an illustrator thinking about the thing. So we'll talk a little bit about this interaction and intermedia collaborations that you install with the magazine as well. I'm also very interested in how it looks and how it comes together. Maybe we can also hand them out so you get a feeling and maybe some ideas and questions come up from looking at the magazine itself. But you also brought a little presentation for us. And yeah, happy to see that.
Thank you. Thanks for inviting us, of course. Thanks to everyone who came. We do have a little presentation just to kind of speak about the specificity of this magazine, because as you said, it is a little bit specific also compared to all of the magazines or the mediums that you've mentioned, who all deal with art or with contemporary art. Ours is a bit different because we work both as a magazine published once per year and as an exhibition platform, which means that every time after we publish a magazine, we also have an exhibition cycle. So we'll just briefly tell you about that before we go into the discussion. This is a very happy picture of all of the founders of the magazine, because this is not only our project, it's a project that was actually started by a few of us during COVID. This is when we really started to sort of discuss what was missing in our space, in our, not just Ljubljana, but even more generally in the Balkans, and thinking about how we could sort of write or think about contemporary art in our space without placing ourselves in a context that Slovenian art is usually placed in, which means for us either Eastern European art or Balkan art or ex-Yugoslavia or post-Yugoslavia, there were always these sort of factors that came in, and we tried to really think about, could we do something different and create a context anew. So we sort of connected together with two galleries, Galeria Fotografia in Ljubljana and Travnikar Gallery Space, a small publishing house called Look Back and Laugh, where Zoran is, our designer, is a part of, and me, Ajda, and Lara, who kind of run the program. We do the curating and the editing. So, as I said, we sort of came together during COVID, when maybe I can say that we really had the time to think about this and actually start this. And I can say in full disclosure, I'm not sure this would have happened in another time and place. But we started with the first issue, which was called Significantly Local. We were thinking about basically the topic of space, as I said before, where we are positioned, what our role is in this space, what it even means, and we started to sort of investigate all of these artistic positions that were dealing with sort of the contrast of the local and the global, our geopolitical space and place that we take. And we've sort of structured the magazine in quite a I would say conventional way, but as we'll see in the next few minutes, we've tried to really sort of question this format and change it with every issue or add stuff, or we are still changing it as we go. But we really started with this format of having a studio visit, an interview, a few different opinions from people who work in culture, but maybe not in the field of curating or visual art at all. There's 2 essays that we've included, and for the first issue, 3 interviews with publishers of artist books. But the main section of the interview of the magazine was the portfolio showcase, where we've gathered sort of different artists. Lara, maybe you can.
Yeah, I think it's so. I think you will see when we go through the magazine. I think it's very apparent that we are all curators. So we have this very curatorial approach, and I think this is the most apparent in this portfolio section, because we kind of see it as a exhibition in print. So we're kind of working with artists in the same way that we would work in the space, but we kind of see the print and the magazine as a new space that can present the projects. And we really decided not to include only photographies, because photography is quite easy to present in the printed media. But we really try to think about also including spatial installations, text-based art, video art, and really think about, in conversation, in the dialogue with artists, of how to present the work, that it's not only just the documentation, but really think about it, how to present this idea and the research and everything that they did in like 3 spreads that we kind of have for each artist. And that's why it's really important that every issue kind of deals with one topic. So also the projects that we select are kind of thinking about this topic in different ways. So for us, it's really a very curatorial process, especially in this part. And it's always, we're, like Hana said, always experimenting with how to present it, opening up the formats, and really think about it as a new medium to present. And yeah, I think this was more apparent, especially in the second issue, which had many video works. So this was quite challenging for us. And how we work is that we invite artists, because we are based in Ljubljana, and because the main idea for this magazine was kind of to reach out, to maybe make some works more visible internationally, because we noticed the lack of that in our local scene. So we always try to also think about our local context when we decide on the artist and choose artists. So we really try to have more Slovenian artists or people that are based in Slovenia, and then kind of combine this with the regions that we find interesting. So that's why this catchphrase from the Balkans from the Baltics to the Balkans kind of is showing which focus we kind of have with the artist. Yeah,
I would say this focus, this idea of the Baltics to the Balkans is also a fictional border that we are using that to show that we don't really have borders in terms of our publication.
Yeah, and we really wanted to avoid the Eastern Europe or this kind of maybe say like this kind of regional descriptions, but really try to make it maybe more open with this vertical. Yeah.
But one way to do that was also, since we're just on that, as we said, like for each issue we do something a bit different. For the second issue already we have integrated into the magazine this section of the scene map, which is we kind of try to invite a curator from different places each time. In the third issue that was Asja Ismailovsky, but for the second one that was Jen Kratokvil, where we sort of ask the curator what their take on a certain local scene is. And this is really an important subject for us, because we are interested in how people see a certain scene from a certain perspective, and of course it sort of adds to putting together the pieces of the puzzle of this wide area that we try to sort of cover.
Yeah, and for us on that was really important also to expand our curatorial process with inviting a different guest curator with each issue, because the first issue we curated ourselves, but it kind of became obvious that by just doing it ourselves, we're just gonna have a really closed area, like really closed selection. So for us, it was really important to invite a guest curator with each issue. So with for the second one, we worked with Lara, who was based in Vienna and in Zagreb, but she's Slovenian curator. And then for the third one, with the Latvian curator, Tina Petersone, which was really nice collaboration because it really opened up the Baltic scenes that we didn't know a lot about. So with guest curator, we kind of get a totally new approach, and we meet many new artists, so this is a really important thing. And now for the next issue that we're now very intensely preparing, we are working with a Polish curator, so it will probably have a focus more on this part of Europe. So.
But so the main thing is that our magazine comes out once a year. It always deals with a certain topic, as you have seen, but because it comes out usually in March of every year, it then continues to sort of explore this format that we've chosen, as Lara said, an exhibition in print, by trying to place these works also in spatial exhibitions. So we try to organize each year. We always do it differently each year, of course, but we do have an exhibition cycle for each of the issues. For the first issue, we only had one exhibition, but for the second, we already had 8, I think, where we really tried to explore or experiment even with the way that the works we choose for the magazine are then presented in space as well. So here you can just see some of the examples. But we have absolutely overdone it with the 8 exhibitions. Needless to say, this is not our main job, which means that, of course, we have to also, and especially going into the 3rd issue, which dealt a lot with the theme of labor and basically work conditions in the art world, and more generally, we really had to look at how we work as well and rethink how we do things as well.
Yeah, I think with each issue we are also talking a lot, and I think when we choose the topic, it always comes from our experience and how we kind of see also the future of the magazine. So it's always, I think we talk a lot about the format and also the content. So with the 3rd issue, I think it was really after 8 exhibitions and everything that we'd done with the 2nd issue, I think it was very logical that we started to question work conditions in art and more generally. So that's why we chose this topic. But yeah, we, like Hana said, we always kind of open up the formats. With the 3rd issue, we also took over the artistic direction of Ljubljana Art Weekend, which was a really nice, for 3 years, so we are still doing that. This was a really nice connection because Ljubljana Art Weekend and ETC magazine happened at the same time, so they have a similar history, but they also have a similar aim in connecting to international audience, connecting local scene. So with the same vision, I think it was kind of logical to connect these 2 platforms. So for the 3rd issue, our main thing was also how to curate an event and how to connect it to the topic of the magazine, which was also really interesting. We did a big show of all the artists that were included in the magazine in one abandoned shopping mall. We will show the photos of this later.
And this great text we included as well.
But yeah, it's I think with each issue we are really experimenting because it's our own magazine, so it really allows us to think about it in a new format every time.
So yeah, for the 2nd issue, the focus was more on the Czech scene from the perspective of Vienna. Here, Asja was writing about the Bosnia and Herzegovina scene, and we included a few sort of experimentational formats as well. Here we did, for example, instead of the interview, we did a roundtable discussion, a fictional roundtable discussion with an artist who uses many alter egos in her work. So it was a sort of discussion moderated by me, but with these fictional characters. We always still include the opinion section, but this time we've started to explore the format of a magazine itself as well, and we all find it a really fun format to experiment with. So for the 3rd issue, we've included a crossword puzzle as well, which you are very much invited to try to fill out. And for the fourth one, we also have something special like this planned, but maybe we can reveal it later. As you said, Klaus, this is also a really fun thing to do since the second issue onwards, is to include the writers who do the essays with an artist that then does a sort of intervention into their work. It's not, we don't see it just as an illustration, but as a sort of collaboration between a writer and an artist to really try to sort of also, of course, represent the work of the artist, but also to connect different people that work in different fields, and it sort of works out really nicely. Here, the essay was by Dino Pišut, and Ivana Bajec did the illustrations.
Yeah, I think we can go through quickly, just so you see how different the projects are. Like here, the artist had the manifesto, which was one of the main parts, so we also published this alongside her works. Then sometimes with the designer, we try to create a totally new layout or a new work, actually. Here, the Slovenian collective PITA project, they were thinking about friendship in art and how many, how it is actually connected with free labor, and how many friends actually help you when you're an artist or curator. So they kind of made like this chart or this map that is with everybody that collaborated with them during their artistic practice, and then they also made it like you could see how connected they are between each other. So it is kind of a map of Ljubljana's art scene, of a special generation in Ljubljana art scene. So sometimes when we approach the artists, they are also thinking about existing work, but sometimes they developed it further just to present it in the magazine. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And then just a few words about the exhibitions that follow the third issue. So we did a few of them. The first one was actually kind of coinciding with the publishing of the magazine in Maribor Art Gallery. And the second one was what we have actually sort of wished for the first issue already, was that we could have had an exhibition presenting all the artists in the magazine. As there is 20 artists, this was impossible for us at the beginning, but the sort of stars aligned for the third issue, and we got the opportunity to exhibit in an abandoned shopping mall in the center of Ljubljana, as the third issue of the magazine is called Selling Out and is really dealing with these conditions of work and of pay and labor. It made a lot of sense to be present here in an old building that has been vacant for a long time. Actually, now it's no longer vacant. It was just taken over by a chocolate museum, which is a shame, I think, for this place. But basically, it was a shopping mall with luxury brands that got sort of, that had a very corrupt leadership, let's say, and was sort of bankrupt by the end. So we took over all the 3 floors of this building, and we created an exhibition that kind of pretended to be a shopping mall as well.
Yeah, and it was really nice because we could use the existing furniture and to present the works. So it was kind of like it was perfect to do the exhibition here. It really fit the works and the topic. And then this was the last floor, which used to be for the luxurious brands. So it had a totally different vibe to the first floors with this dark marble everywhere. And yeah, we kind of worked with the space a lot when we did this exhibition, and we opened it for Ljubljana Art Weekend. So this was kind of the main exhibition then. And now for the fourth issue, we are not going to repeat that with Ljubljana Art Weekend, but we are again thinking about how to do it differently, how to present the works in a different way, maybe more connected to the city, but this was because of the topic that we dealt with at that time, it was a perfect opportunity to do something like that. Yeah.
I think that briefly.
Thank you so much. Yeah, lovely also to see the show, and this floor looks very amazing, works very well. And of course this idea of the shop and the relationship to art is something I find extremely interesting. Also the museum shop being the interface between artistic style and personal lifestyle. I mean, I think it's really interesting, and the selling out of the art world in different ways, because you also said it connected to your own personal experience of like overworking yourselves for, so not only that the art is selling out to the market, but also that the art workers are basically selling out. Was that a topic as well? Did I understand that correctly?
Yeah, the topic was, we always choose a very broad topic, and then because we usually choose the topic 1 year in advance, so we have a whole year of thinking about it, doing the research, thinking about the artist, so it is quite a long process, and we always have it in mind, but it's not very active, so it kind of in the end it kind of always presents different positions, and we also play with that a lot. So with the second issue, that was called Fever Dream and dealt with bizarre things in art and anxieties of our time. We kind of made a narrative that went from a very dreamy works to a very dark, post-apocalyptic, non-human. So we kind of, through the portfolios, we kind of made a narrative. So when because we had a reader in mind that would go through, so we were kind of also playing with dramaturgy of the magazine. But with the third issue, that dealt with, of course, also the aspect of selling art in art world, but mostly about also work conditions, because we also want to approach the topic not just this in the art world, but also broadly, more broadly. For us, it was, with this issue, we kind of had the different focuses, and then we were exploring them through this issue. So it's different with each issue, I think.
But it is for sure that we do stem from our own experience when we start to explore a certain subject. But absolutely, our experience is not something. It's not a lone example. When we were doing this issue, it might have been I will say, not for all of us, but for me, it was one of the hardest issues to do, because it dealt a lot with the conditions that we work in. It also dealt with burnout, for example, with over-exhaustion, with people sort of not being able to, and then it showed also in the way that people were collaborating with us, missed deadlines, just that it turned out to be a difficult one to sort of put together, but because this topic is of course difficult. I would say though that now I think it's being talked about more and more in the art world, the way that we work and the conditions we work in, the amount of money we are paid. So all of this is super important, and this was of course felt by the artists and writers in this issue as well.
I mean, in Austria, there's a really important fair pay initiative right now, and they now brought out as well a kind of lexicon of the different terms that are connected to that. Is that something that's also going on in Slovenia already, or?
It is, well, maybe not as much as here, but it is for sure. We had a change in government 2 years ago. And with the new Minister of Culture, they have made some reforms also in the way, like in how much money you have to pay for a solo show, for a group show or something. That was something that was non-existent before.
Same here, by the way.
Yeah, and it's also now a new initiative to be more open about the payments. So I think they approach all the public institutions to share how much the artist is paid for each show, so it kind of gets more transparent and more talked about. So it is changing, and it's yeah.
I don't think it's very transparent yet, but
Yeah, but this is the goal.
You spoke a little bit about what they call iconography in the magazine, and that you try to include also visuals from the process and so on. How do you choose the visuals? So you're not only looking at finished kind of work visuals. Do you ask people to produce new ones?
Yeah,
or?
I think it really depends, because sometimes the works. When I said that we are trying to also not just show the documentation of the exhibitions, but if the work is spatial and it's important for the work, of course we also show that. Or if the process is really important for the work, like with this Arbeit Collective, which is a performance group from Zagreb. For them, it was really important also how they worked, because they had this performance in National Theatre, and for them, this process was the same importance as the final performance. So we decided to also include that. So we always have Zooms, or we meet with artists and we talk how to present it, and we really want to get in depth with each project. So it really depends, and that's why we're also not fixed on the idea of having 3 spreads per artist. But this is something that we also because some works are not that visual maybe, or have more text, so we have 1 spread or 2 spreads, or if the artist had many layers with the projects and many different visual or like different forms of presenting it, then we kind of have the 3 spreads. So we are also, because we can play with the formats a lot, this is something that we also do with the artist. It really depends on each project.
I really love the graphic design. And is it like really one hand? So the graphic designer does all of that, like including choosing the typefaces or the fonts?
I mean, he made the font. This was actually done by the artist, Marusha Ohan.
Okay.
The font is part of her project.
Yeah. Okay.
But yes, so Zoran Pungarčar, our designer, is also one of the founders of the magazine. So since the beginning, he was very sort of invested in making this project for himself as well, and developing both the 2 typefaces that are used just for the magazine.
And you spoke a little bit about the foundation as a group, and of course this asks a question of working as a collective. How do you distribute things? Do you negotiate each artist that is included among all of you, or is it really the choice of you have the role of curator together with the second founder who's not here? Yeah.
This is also something we've discussed a lot. Obviously, again, referring to the way that we work and the amount of work that we can do. We started with the first issue, the 3 of us as curators and me as editor. But for the second issue already, we've decided I took on mostly just the editing and dealing with the text and the writers, while Ajda and Lara, together with the guest curator, Lara Reichmann, took over the curating part. This doesn't mean that we don't, all 3 of us still aren't sort of embedded in every part of the process, but it's easier to keep this sort of distributed a little bit because the workload does get quite intense, I would say, with all of the content of the magazine. And it's also great to be able to include more people in, like Katarina Rožniak-Zabelska, who is our guest curator for the next issue, or Tina Petersone for the last one, or Lara Reichmann for the second one.
And we, from the 3rd issue on, we also have an open call. So this is another format that allows us to expand a little bit more. With the open, so it's not just open call when it comes to the selection of artists, but it is a part of, important part of the selection. So half, I would say, it's curatorial work, and half is then the going through open call and like this curatorial research, and have the open call. So it's kind of a combination. And then we go through all the projects, we propose our ideas, and then we kind of see what fits also in maybe the focuses that we want to have, or the narrative that we want to have. So it's a really nice process.
Yeah, I mean, personally, I really like it, and I think one can feel that it's, you know, it takes time, and it's not like you need to churn out a magazine every month, and so you can really think about things more intensely and include more people and make meaningful choices. One question you mentioned that that it evolved and you changed things. What would you say are kind of the main choices, and what were the ideas behind them, or what were the learnings from earlier editions where you said this would be interesting to change?
Mm-hmm. Well, a lot changed for us also with the international distribution that we got. We have an international distributor called Antenne Books, who are based in London. So I have told you earlier that we do have this. So making a magazine, making the content, doing the curation is one thing. Then another thing is this sort of distribution part, which is very important, of course, but not the easiest, especially when you have mostly curators and writers doing the work and not really business managers, which I suppose would be great if one of us were that. So for us, I think one of the biggest challenges was how to figure out this dual nature of doing a magazine, because a big part of it is also being able to sell yourself and be very present and do the marketing and do the PR. So this is something that we are still trying to sort of develop further, but I think we've already done a huge leap from the first issue, where basically we were still really finding our footing, you know, in terms of where to actually be present at all with this magazine.
Yeah, for example, like I said, because we are curators, we never thought about art book fairs, or like we always went for art fairs or exhibitions or presented in the gallery. I think we were also developing, or I think we are still thinking about who the audience is, who is reading this magazine. Are these curators, are institutions, or is this the general public? So I think this is, with each issue, this is the question of, how to work on the magazine that you publish once a year through the whole year. So with the presentations, this year, for example, we were also invited to do a discursive program for one exhibition. So this was really interesting for us to think about this format, not just do exhibitions, but really think about different things that we could do with our platform. And
yeah, it really showed when we did this for the second issue, when we did this whole cycle of exhibitions, that we've really sort of jumped into this format of exhibition making, because this is something that we do, and it felt really natural to us, but maybe it wasn't the right thing at that time for the magazine. So always for each issue we try to reconstruct what we did in the past and think about how we can improve it in the future.
Talking about distribution, are all the issues still available as back issues?
No, actually, the first issue is sold out.
Okay.
But the second two are still available.
And how would people get them?
So they can get them from lots of shops that are in contact with Antenne Books, for example, internationally. And then we also have a network of places that we work with in Slovenia and in the region, sort of. Places that Antenne doesn't cover, for example. But we do also have orders on our website. So mostly, I mean, this is quite usual, I would say, that people order from us directly and we ship it out. But this is, again, one part that's, you know, the shipping and the logistics and everything. This is...
not your comfort zone.
This is maybe not our comfort zone.
I can relate to that.
Now it is maybe, but for the first issue, it was more difficult to get ourselves organized.
And you spoke about the kind of evolutions in terms of what you do with the magazine and distribution, and in terms of the contents, were there like major adjustments that you made in what you feature and the different sections, or what were the learnings there?
I think some some parts stayed quite the same. We wanted to have some similar structure when it comes to the magazine, but then I feel like we always add something new, like with the scene map or now the crossroad. I think it's, or this round table. We always think about what could be interesting to add or to do. So I think in terms of the content, some things didn't change a lot. But yeah, I think it really depends on the topic that we're exploring at that time.
Yeah, but also because, as Lara mentioned, it's our own magazine, sort of. We get to be a little bit experimental also. And me personally, I'm a big fan of these cheap magazines that you can buy that have all the crosswords and the horoscope and the jokes. There's always jokes in there. So it's really fun to explore, for me at least, the merging of this like very cheap, trashy sort of fun magazines with a more serious art format, for example, which we do. So for the next issue, we're very happy to be able to include a horoscope as well.
Art world, for some reason, loves horoscopes. I have never gotten into it, but yes, there's a lot of people who love it.
This one is made specifically for you. You'll love it, trust me.
Following, before I of course also invite you to ask your questions or make your comments. Maybe one last question, because you're talking about the conditions of work in the art world, and you're basically your own employer and you're a worker here. So do you have to do the work on the magazine you love without getting paid, or are you able to somehow pay yourself as well?
Well, we are lucky to be funded, at least partially, by the municipality of Ljubljana and the Ministry of Culture of Slovenia. So because of the sort of specific funding requirements that we have in Slovenia, we do actually have to have an exhibition cycle, because a lot of our work is funded from that part of what we do. But the magazine itself is also then, of course, a big part of it are the sponsorships, the ads that are in there, and so forth. But we are now at a stage, finally, doing our 4th issue, when we can be paid at least some amount for our work. But yeah, of course, we do prioritize paying everyone who contributes, paying the writers, and we are willing to maybe cut our share to be able to do that and to cover the print as well, which is, of course, the biggest expense of doing a magazine, which is why lots of people have moved on to just doing online publications and not do printed versions anymore.
But then you have nothing to put on the coffee table, like this beautiful magazine. Yeah, thank you. Are there already some questions or suggestions from your side as well, audience side? Who already knew the magazine? Who's here beforehand? Okay, so.
Who is writing the horoscope? Astrologist or artist?
Curator.
A curator horoscope. Okay, so about half of if you knew it.
What is the topic of the workplace? It's called Comfort Zone, and it's going to deal more with, because we also went from doing the 3rd issue as it being kind of tough for us, as well, you know, exploring also our own sort of positions and our own jobs, and just being very sort of pragmatic about it. So for the next issue, we really wanted to explore, to put more focus on relationships, familial structures, sort of new modes of maybe families, and yeah, that felt sort of interesting to us to move in a different direction. Maybe, yeah, I mean, the perspectives will of course be different, from the sort of darker to nicer ways of looking at the comfort zone, but it felt natural.
Other, yes, Asia?
I don't have a smart question, but I just want to say that my experience of working with it fits with my sweater. That I had a really great experience of working with the ETC magazine, and that you are the best editors, and that you make people really comfortable working with you, which is, I think, really, really, really rare in the art world. And you make people feel smarter. You kind of delete the imposter syndrome that that we all carry within us. And it's not funny. It's true. Yeah.
It's funny because it's true.
Thank you. We do actually try to make people feel comfortable when they're working with us.
It's nice to hear that.
Hi, I'm Trisha Lagasso-Goldberg. I'm from Hawaii and San Francisco. So I'm quite curious about how you make a living outside of this project, because it seems substantial. I mean, you're essentially publishing a book. I mean, it is in magazine form, but the content that you're producing, working with 20 different writers, artists, I mean, it's just 20 writers and then artists in addition, right? Yeah, I mean, that's like a major exhibition every single edition. So I'm curious about that, like how you support yourself outside of this endeavor. And then I'm also interested, like, do you get invited as curators or editors to guest organize exhibitions and or publications?
Mm-hmm. So yeah, we all work different jobs. They're all curatorial, or at least are in the contemporary art in a way. So for us, it's I think also it was when we started the magazine. For us, it was very important that we all came from different situations. So we worked for institutions, we worked for NGOs, we worked for off spaces, private galleries. So we really had an overview. Especially, we were really active, all of us, in the local scene. So we really had, over the years, really good overview. And that's why I think we also started the magazine, because we saw the lack of things, especially for our generations of artists. So I think it was really important that we worked like many, many different things before. And because we can't live from the magazine, we continue with that. But I think now when we're doing the 4th issue, we already, because we got a really nice feedback from the first one on. So I think now we really see, after the 4 years, we really see the impact that it has in terms of also, we actually see the connections with artists and the opportunities they get, or writers with, when people see the magazine, which is amazing, because that's why we started it. But also for us, because we work as a collective and we also have this curatorial part of the magazine, it really now is happening that we are invited to curate a show or to do like discursive programs. So for the next year, we are preparing an exhibition in Budapest and in Prague, and we were like invited because we have this platform and because we have this magazine. So for us, it was really nice also as our curators to have something that we can share in that way.
But also in terms of how we make it work, because it is a very long process. So we published the issue in March, but we start developing the second one in April already. So we do have a whole year basically of first thinking and discussing about the project, and then working with artists and writers in a very slow-paced way, where we, for example, when I invite writers, I usually request their writing pieces, and I'm looking at you here, way in advance, because yes, of course, the magazine is published later, but if we want to make it work and have the discussions and the conversations that we need to have something good and to establish a good, caring relationship, then it's great to have this in advance, to have the time and the energy to invest into it. So we are upfront about the fact that we do take time for something, and then it takes, of course, before everything gets edited and proofread and designed and translated, because the magazine is published in 2 languages. There's a Slovene translation booklet in the end. So we do realize that we can't do a magazine like that fast. We need to have a year of really, work being put into it.
Also because you also work to earn money on the side.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Just one last question, which is, who is your intended audience for the publication?
Actually, as Lara said before, we started to work on the magazine because we wanted to expand the field of art as we knew it from our region internationally. But we didn't really have a certain audience in mind. We didn't start this from the position of, we want to pitch this to institutions, or we would like to pitch this to curators. We just wanted to, for the first one, we really just wanted to see what happens and what the reaction is, and to sort of learn from that. But now I would say that we are actually aiming very widely, because when we see who is buying the magazine, the audience is really, really diverse. I couldn't say that just institutions or curators or even the art world are interested in that. It goes really, really wide, like people from outside of art, or even, just really, really different, I would say. Schools are also interested a lot, universities, just, I don't know, super different. Yeah. Which is great. We're very happy about that. We wouldn't, I guess we would start to question our work if only institutions or curators would be, or even if only people from the art world would be interested in that. But the people who write for us are not just people from the art world. It's also from fields of literature, or I don't know, even like researchers, or we try to include very different people.
Maybe I can have a short follow-up question on that, also relating to the audience. What's your approach to the writing in the magazine? Do you look to have a style, or do you more have a laissez-faire approach where each person writes as they are, or a mix in different parts of the magazine?
Yeah, that's very important. I think it goes with this question, actually, because we specifically do not want, which again I was asked this year for the next issue, if it should be a scientific article, with all the footnotes and everything with the scientific apparatus, which is not something that we aim for. We do try to have a sort of open diction, approachable, let's say. So we tend to avoid overly academic texts, but we try to have more sort of opinion-based, I would say.
Also, when we do this portfolio part, artists usually send us their statements and descriptions of the projects. Then we write the text, so we kind of have the similar form. So it's like exhibition texts in a way. So for reader, it gets like this important informations right away. This portfolio part we really see as a presentation of the work. So I think this is very it has a uniform of how it's written or edited at least. So
when you work with academics, you kind of, as an editor, you see your role as well as moderating the jargon, or asking for clarifications, or
a little bit, yeah. Mostly I just ask if there's a personal perspective that could be a part of it, where we don't, like in the first issue, for example, we have a great text that is researching a Polish minority. It's a very specific theme, and it's a very specific article that started almost as an academic text and also came from an academic research, but the way that then the writer structured it, the way that he played a little bit with form, but also with integrating his personal position into it, made it a really nice piece for us to publish.
Yeah, it's kind of the writing, which is the kind of nitty-gritty of our crit cross very often. So it's also an important part. Are there other questions or remarks? Yes. If I understood, a future writer of the magazine?
Current writer.
Current writer.
I sent my questions today. No, I was curious kind of on your opinion specifically on criticism and how you deal with that in my experience, or criticism nowadays is very often either some sort of puff piece because I guess people want to write about things that they like usually rather than dislike, or they are very descriptive, just describing basically the exhibition, so with no criticism or opinion at all. So I would be interested kind of how you approach this and what's your opinion on this.
No, I think when it comes to criticism or texts that deal with very recent exhibitions, I think from the first issue we kind of decided not to include that, just because we already have that in Ljubljana. So, and there are so many portals or there's not enough criticism, but you have so many these announcements of the exhibition, and then institutions want that you cover some, and so I think this is very present, and we really wanted to do it differently. So we don't have that's why we didn't want to go into the website. That's why we really decided to have the printed, so it's almost like a book, like you said. And that it's always connected to the topic, so it really, really functions as a whole. And I think it's really nice because we can still look at the first issue and it's still relevant. We can really read the text or see the artist, and it still makes sense how it is connected. We always get we have institutions or exhibitions writing to us and asking if they can be featured, but it's really, we really don't want to become that, because I think we really have to have this focus and do it like that, because if we start to do that, then it's just gonna be
if we focus on current events in art, then it just becomes that. But also I would say we are sort of tackling that with this scene map section that Jen was writing for, and Asya. And this is a section where I know that it's a tough section, actually, because we do invite a person to look at their own environment and be critical of it. It's a tough position to put someone in. We have a Romanian writer doing it for the next issue, which I'm very excited about. But of course, it's a position where you have to present something to an international scene, and you have to have a balance a little bit between, of course, selling your local scene and making it seem exciting, but at the same time keeping this sort of critical note as well. So this is something that we try to then balance out together, you know, seeing where the text could use a little bit more of a critical view and where it could lose some of it, maybe. Yeah, I get it really depends on the writer. Each time it's different.
Other questions or remarks? I mean, the way I see it in that sense, it's also a good question. It's not like essentially a critical magazine. It's more a showcase or and then a reflective magazine. I mean, with the essays. So there's this reflective part, this artistic part, but not so much a magazine where you would expect art criticism in the kind of evaluation sense. The fact that someone is featured maybe is already a kind of positive evaluation. So in that sense, it's probably I didn't quite read the section you mentioned. So I will look into that in terms of also this critical stance. But for the artist presentation, it seems more. that you choose people that you consider interesting to be also platformed and as visible internationally. In terms of that, I see no other hands. Do you have any kind of like principle of, let's say, you want to feature equally men and women, minorities, or is it just excellence, as they would say when you get a European research grant, where they say that we never look at who it is; it's just the excellence. So what is the what is your stance on that?
I think from the first issue we kind of try to have Slovenian artists or have local artists and have artists from abroad, but it turned out that it really depends on the topic. So some topics are very present in the local scene, some topics less. So we are also, like, we have this focus, but we are also changing that based on the projects that we have. So I think the topic is always the most important when we choose the projects. Now for the next issue, we mostly have women or artists, so which happened totally randomly. We didn't have it in mind. We're still not finished with the final selection of the artists, but yeah, I guess the project's comfort zone, dealing with personal, family, intimate topics, kind of logically led to have more artists.
But we never have this in mind, actually.
Yeah,
like we don't set out to do a specific selection, but usually it kind of works in the end to be pretty balanced.
Other thoughts or questions, comments? How do you get featured in your magazine? for all the artists out there. So what now you have the open call, right? So that would be a way, and you put it out with the topic.
Yeah, already.
For the next issue, it's closed. No more comfort zone artists can apply.
No, we're still not finished with the
the
selection.
call is closed. Yeah.
But the call is closed. No, but it's not just the call. We are always open to get the suggestions of artists. So on our website there is our emails, and we are always happy to hear about the projects that maybe, because this is such a long process, so we always have new issues in mind that are not even, that we didn't say out loud yet what it's gonna be, but it's always nice to get the new positions and see artists, and also the artists that we don't choose in the open call. We always have it in mind for different things, so it's not like when we do the selection of the open call, it's just really has to fit the narrative that we have and the topic that we want to, or the focuses that we want to have, but we are always curious to find new positions and new artists. So for us it's really important, and we're really happy if somebody reaches out anytime.
Well, thank you also for this invitation. If there are no more questions at this point, I would like to thank you very much for coming here, and also the audience for joining us. Is there someone monitoring? Is there anything online? Any comments, questions? Okay. So yeah, so thanks again. I guess we can still have a drink and converse. For those who were too shy to ask their question now, you can still do it. And thank you, Depot. Thank you, Jelena is now also there from Verein K as well. And Diane will also be here a little bit.
Thank you so much also from us for the invitation. Thanks for coming, everyone. It was good to see you again, or for the first time.